We live in a world like that is completely run on pointless, useless technology when you need it to work, and fossil fuels. We're so screwed when things stop working. And that is the lesson for us today. Welcome into Star Wars Newsnet Live, where we start at 10 o'clock sharp, unless your computer sucks and doesn't know how to operate, which I guess is like partially my own fault. And because for not making enough money to invest in a new computer. How are we guys doing? We have a lot to talk about this evening. There's so much Star Wars going on in the universe, and it's just a blessing to be able to hear you both. And I promise that during this show tonight that we are going to be as helpful and beneficial to each other and to the Star Wars world with all of the rumors and the stories going around. Much more helpful and much more beneficial than this is not professional of me to say as an educator and someone who wants to have a long career in education, as certain people, adults, that go out of their way to be unhelpful sometimes. And I'm going to leave it at that because we have a lot to talk about. It's just, I'm worked up. This is going to be a fun episode because I feel like I'm really worked up. But hit that like and subscribe button. We got lots of Star Wars to talk about now and in the future. Joined by Miguel, who is primed and ready to go for this episode, I know, after just whipping up an article for us. Luke, who said he couldn't make it last week or whatever because it was his fiance's birthday, yet went ahead and went live in the chat throughout his fiance's birthday. So clearly,
just a little bit.
Clearly, your priorities couldn't get straight either.
If
so
someone on the internet is talking about Kanan Jarrus, I'm there. Okay? And his name was mentioned last week, and so I had to come say something. Regardless of who I'm with or where I'm at.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Miguel, are you...
I just have one question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm ready. Misremembering something, or was that new music at the beginning?
Okay, so I thought that was another one of my issues that I had, that I was just hearing something different than everyone else. I have not changed that video. It's not been altered, I don't think, in any way, unless Nate came on here and changed it, which is possible. But I don't know. How did we feel about the new 30-second countdown? Upgrade?
Weirded out.
It was weird. It was weird because it wasn't what I was used to, but I thought it vibed. It was fine.
There was a vibe. Okay. All right. You know what's a vibe?
Listening like it too.
Your computer is a vibe, Tyler.
My computer's not a vibe. It's a turn off. It's ridiculous. I about crashed out on this thing before we started. And anyway, a couple things, but you know what's a vibe, Miguel, is us getting done recording a podcast about the Oscars and me gushing about how much I wanted Timothée Chalamet to win Best Actor because I just felt like he was going to deliver a killer speech. And then what happened at the SAG Awards that night is he upsets the world. He gets the award, and he delivered a killer speech. That's what I was wanting. And
I want to be one of the greats
again on Sunday. Let's go. And
I mean, unfortunately for you, the voting for the Oscars closed before that speech, so it's not like it's gonna factor in.
Oh, it's gonna factor in. Like there's a universe manifestation has occurred.
Okay,
they're gonna reverse.
That's what's happening.
Vote.
it's they locked it in. For those of you excited to talk about Star Wars, we did see the recent report about Kathleen Kennedy, the Deadline interview. And it doesn't change our headline at all, just because, sure, the, timeline may look a little bit different, who knows, but she announced she's no longer going to be in her role. Within a year, they'll probably announce the succession plan. So we're going to talk about that. That she dropped some bombs, honestly, in that Deadline interview, which we get to talk about a lot. We know when the Sean Levy movie is taking place. We know the timeline for that. We know the timeline for the Simon Kinberg trilogy, which we're going to talk about when the script's supposed to be dropped for that. It's pretty incredible that she, I think, just dropped some of those. And Miguel and I talked, and we're gonna get into some of this. We had a trailer for a Star Wars show that comes out in 2 months that happened this week, and it feels like that's not what anyone's talking about, and it was killer. We had a lot of things going on. So I'm excited. I feel like we should just dive right into the Kathleen Kennedy news because that's what's hot. That's what's first. I think we're all itching to get into that. And there's so many branch off conversations to have after that. And Manslayer, you hit it the nail on the head here. It's hard to believe that after 4 trials in the Supreme Court, Kathleen Kennedy is still the viceroy of the Lucasfilm Trade Federation, which is true for now. Miguel, give us just the bullet points of what to take away, not necessarily with the movie news she announced in that interview with Deadline, but just like bullet points of where we're at now with what Kathleen Kennedy herself has said about her, future with Lucasfilm.
I mean, what's interesting is that this was the second time someone in the media tried to correct the report from Monday night, and it wasn't really a correction. Right, so the report on Monday night said that she would be leaving before the end of the year, or by the end of the year, or however you want to put it. So she will be there throughout the majority of 2025. And then the CNN report that came out the next day just said that she's not going anywhere for now, and it's like, no, she's not. She's going to be there for another 10 months, and that's what the original report said, and that's basically what Kathleen Kennedy said in this interview with Deadline as well. She said that they have someone that they are eyeing for to take over, and that they're talking to Disney, they're talking to Bob Iger, to Alan Bergman, and they're just putting the right places in the right place, and they will make an announcement within a few months or even a year, which is basically what the original report said. So nothing has changed. The plan is for Kathleen Kennedy to be at the top of Lucasfilm for the next 10 to 12 months, and then she will depart. I do believe that it will be closer to 10 than to 12. I do believe that by January 2nd next year, she will not be there anymore, but she will still produce movies because that was also part of the plan all along. If you've been reading like these reports, and I've been actually paying attention to this because like we've been smelling this being the case for a while, that when the Simon Kinberg news came out, one of the first sentences in the Deadline report was Kathleen Kennedy will be producing. And that's not because she is the president of Lucasfilm. That's because she is the producer of the movie. So even if she's no longer the president of Lucasfilm, she will still be the producer of the movie. So,
and that's what her role. That's where she came from. She wasn't an executive before all this. She's a movie producer, and she said in this interview, "I'm going to die making movies," and I believe her. That's like what she was born to do: is be just a kick-ass movie producer as well.
I mean, she wants that Oscar, and she's not gonna get an Oscar, a Best Picture Oscar with Star Wars. So she's probably going to work with Spielberg. She's probably going to work with many other high-profile filmmakers who want to work with the Kathleen Kennedy producer, not the Kathleen Kennedy executive, which is the side of her that we've seen lately that is perhaps not the brightest in terms of collaborating with.
And here's what's curious is that obviously the steam is picked up for Dave Filoni to be the guy that takes over for her. It seems there's the reports that that's Disney's choice, that they're working in tandem, and he seems to be the guy. Obviously they would have a great team around him probably, but Luke, I want to throw this to you. I don't think that this is the right spot for him. Like maybe I'm wrong, and he could come in and be an incredible, president of a company. It just feels like we just got Dave Filoni's live action debut with The Mandalorian. He hasn't even put together a movie yet. He's going to be the president of this company, which means he's going to tell less stories and focus more on the managing of a company. Do you feel confident? Are you like, okay, you want Dave Filoni in this role, or are you a little bit more of a skeptic at this point? Just from because I know you're not someone that dives into the nitty gritty of like who is producing this at what time, who's the president going to these executive meetings. I know that you're more of a pure like who's creating our Star Wars as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, like right off the bat, I love that both of you are on this episode being able to give your takes on this, because I know both of you are so much more qualified than I am to talk about this, what's going on behind the scenes. But for me to just throw in my 2 cents, I would really like Filoni to stay as more of a writer, someone who's very involved with what you're going to be seeing on screen. I Not that I know the guy super well, but I don't think he would, work his best work as the head of Lucasfilm, who's managing a company. I think he got his start, writing animation, not even Star Wars. He got, pulled over to Star Wars from, Avatar, and he was doing stuff before that too. So he's good at making stories. He's good at writing stuff. He's good at getting that stuff on screen. And I've loved to see his progression to go to more complex stories. I'm not going to say that live action is more sophisticated or better or something than animation, but he's stepped up into a harder role of making animation or live action. So I'd like to see him stay there. I don't think he's
sitting as the chief creative officer. And I think a lot of people, when he got that role, felt that was the perfect spot for him to ultimately end up being the former Padawan of George Lucas, for lack of a better term. And now it seems like if he's president, he's going to be doing less of creative officing. He's going to be doing less of doing the creative side of things. But if that's the guy they have handpicked for the job, I'm sure they obviously had discussions.
I'll root for him all the same. Yeah, I'll hope he does well.
Miguel, what are your 2 cents with the whole Filoni is supposedly the guy that they want? Because I know you would attack this more, and this is where I really want to hear from more of like the filmmaking side of, this is someone who has to work with, top tier filmmakers to come in and do things. And are they going to take notes from someone like Dave Filoni?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the interesting point here is that Kathleen Kennedy has been, she was a producer working with Spielberg, making classics for Amblin for like 30 years before she took over Star Wars. So whenever Rian Johnson comes in, he takes notes from her because she knows how to make a movie. And whenever, Ron Howard comes in, he takes notes because he has been growing up in the same areas as she has. So, and Dave Filoni, like, he hasn't really made or produced a live action feature film. So if James Mangold with his Oscar nominations comes in, is he going to take notes from him? Like, that's what I wonder. And I don't think that Filoni would get this job alone. I think that they're going to go the DC route, and they're going to have another partner with him so that he can focus on the creative side and someone else can focus on the budget meetings and on the talking to the Disney executives and on the the more corporate side of the job.
And who do you think that is? Is it Carrie Beck or someone else?
So I keep going back to the time that they announced Filoni being promoted to Chief Creative Officer, and they also promoted Carrie Beck to Head of Development. And I always took that, like from the very day, as these 2 guys are being groomed to be Kathleen Kennedy's successors. So, and if you look at the timeline, like this makes perfect sense because Kathleen Kennedy was supposed to leave at the end of 2024. Like we know that now because of the reports that came out, and we knew that then because her contract was up by the end of 2024. And I mean, we didn't know for sure that that was going to be the end, but there was like this timeline where she was picking a successor a year before her contract would be up, which is precisely what you do in a highly high profile corporate job. Like the Disney success, Bob Iger's successor is going to be picked a year in advance of his departure, and so on. Like this is classical corporate corporate maneuvering. So it just made sense all the way. And whether that's still the case, whether perhaps they now have decided something else, I don't know. But I do think that was the plan
Mhm.
at the beginning, and I have to believe that's still the plan. So yeah, I don't know. There's like an interesting thing about this as well in the DHR report that came out a couple of days ago, and it was that apparently Kathleen Kennedy was grooming Rain Roberts instead of either Filoni um, or Carrie Beck, which I found
Mhm.
like really interesting because Rain Roberts has been at the company for over 10 years now, and she like the first time she produced, like she actually developed something and she produced something was The Acolyte. She hadn't like she was mostly at her office, and yeah, she was
Mhm.
probably like making, producing, not producing, but managing things from behind the scenes. But she wasn't
Right.
on the set every day. She wasn't making the films. She wasn't making the shows. The first time was The Acolyte, and like say whatever you want to say about The Acolyte. But my point is that she was given this job in
Some
2020,
people will.
and since then she was not given any other job. Meaning, like if she was being groomed for like Kennedy's position, her only grooming consisted in developing one
Mhm.
show, not like a bunch of others, or being a co-producer on
Mhm.
Ahsoka or whatever. Like it was just this one show, and then after that show came out 6 months later, she leaves the company. I'm not sure if she was pushed out. I'm not sure if Searchlight said we want her. She's at Searchlight now, by the way, which is
Mhm.
also under Disney, so it's not like she was fired or whatever. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but uh, I found that very interesting.
So this whole thing is interesting because you have the name Kathleen Kennedy just sparks conversation in sometimes the worst possible ways in Star Wars. And I just want to take a moment to take a deep breath here because while I'm in the camp of it's the perfect time to have a new voice in charge of the company and to have someone, fresh that's leading the way, I think that so many people don't even understand like the what goes into the day-to-day, being president of Lucasfilm means. And we cannot sit here and say that Kathleen Kennedy, in my opinion, has been a colossal failure for Star Wars by any stretch of the imagination. We have 5 movies out there. 4 of them grossed over $1 billion. One of them has led to their, Tony Gilroy taking over for their critically acclaimed show that they're hoping, can win them some awards again, at next Emmy season that comes out here in a couple months. One of their shows is a worldwide phenomenon that's now going to hit the theaters next year. I mean, could easily write a success story there. Obviously, there are plenty of losses that we could talk about as well, but by no stretch of the imagination has this been some sort of like clean slate, just wipe failure. We have to start from scratch. And I think that her coming out in this interview and displaying some level of confidence for the future. I mean, there was obviously some pressure to do so, given the reports that came out, probably without her wanting that maybe to come out at this time. So we can shift, I think, and talk about some of the exciting things that did come from this kind of chaos of a week in terms of, interviews, announcements. And that's Sean Levy. His movie is going to be next. That was rumored and we were reporting about that. But she just flat out said that you have Mando and Grogu, and then you have Sean Levy, whose film's coming out, next, going into production. They asked her about the Ryan Gosling thing got brought up. She didn't push that back. I feel like he's definitely circling that. That feels pretty confident. And it's going to take place beyond episode 9. We're going into the future. It's going to be 5 to 6 years after episode 9. So that was really exciting. And then on top of that, she went out of her way to mention that Simon Kinberg is developing, the trilogy that is the next iteration of the story of the saga that also takes place in the future, and that he's supposedly delivering a draft to them this summer, which is interesting to talk about as well. So she did not have to go out and say all those things. She, I think, wanted to show this sign of strength. But the fact that, and Miguel, you told me this before we got on, the fact that she's willing to be open and talking about this right now, what does that mean for Star Wars Celebration? What does that mean for, the future of other projects, as well? So let's talk about this for a minute.
You're
What
still
through
missing one
that?
thing. She mentioned that there's gonna be sequel trilogy characters in the Sean Levy movie.
I actually I missed that. I was skimming
Yeah,
through. I
she
wasn't
did.
hitting every
So
single
let me
thing.
pull up the quote.
MVP
But
Miguel.
what's that?
So-
MVP Miguel, you're always on it.
Are we thinking?
let
Are we
me-
thinking Ray?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
So she
sequel
said,
trilogy characters.
with-
I mean,
and with this, meaning
Claude?
the Sean Levy movie, it's all pretty much new characters. We may bring some of the characters back from the sequel saga, but pretty much new characters.
what characters do you bring in? Like what? I mean, who's coming back if it's not Ray at this point? Maz Kanata,
Beaumont Kin, let's go.
I mean-
Beaumont Kin, Claude.
I don't know. I'm still struggling to see the vision here. Like, are you gonna bring Ray to have her play second fiddle to Ryan Gosling, or is Ryan Gosling going to play second fiddle to Daisy Ridley? Because I don't
Oscar
see the latter
Isaac.
happening.
And Gosling.
I mean, they've
team
worked
up.
together in the past, but I don't really see Oscar coming back, although he's coming to Celebration, which I always took as, a free trip to Japan and also an opportunity to make a bunch of money by taking pictures with fans, but maybe there's something more. I mean, my head usually goes to like lower tier characters, like,
Right.
Not
a lot.
Rose or
Rose, I guess.
What's Carrie Fisher's daughter's name?
Lieutenant
Lord, I
Connix.
don't know her.
Billy Lord's name?
I don't know
Lieutenant
her
Connix.
Lieutenant
so Billy
Connix.
Lord,
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know, someone like that, but that feels like really, really minor. I don't know. John Boyega like feels wasted by himself here.
I guess you could have Chewie pop in. That doesn't, he's not
But
a
that's
sequel
not really a
trilogy
sequel
character.
saga character.
Right.
So I don't know,
BB-8.
I'm just trying to think of.
Daisy.
I'm just trying to think of people still alive that at the end that is someone that you would recognize.
Lando
Might be
Calrissian.
Daisy.
What
Jan, I
happened
guess.
here?
I don't know.
Yeah, Jana, yeah. But that's interesting that I did not think that with Daisy's movie, moving forward, now you have this Simon Kinberg trilogy that's taking place in the future. I always thought that was going to be in the future. And this one being also 5 to 6 years, right after, and the Daisy movie is supposed to be 15 years after. I'm really curious to see.
Well, we don't
what's
know
going
about
on
that,
here.
to be honest. We haven't gotten any confirmation in the past couple of years that the 15-year gap is still in place. Like they've changed writers, well, once now, but this is like the third iteration of the writers that movie
It actually takes place 15 years before The Force Awakens when she's a child.
Right. So no,
Yes.
I do still believe
Story
that
we
Daisy
needed.
will be there, but if it's like instead of 15, this just happens 2 years after the Sean Levy movie, who knows? Like,
Who cares? But it's.
I mean, yeah, who
I think
cares,
it's interesting that she's being this forthright with that information, just coming out and saying this is the plan. Like we feel pretty good about this. Just having the president of Lucasfilm, because even before when we've had a lot of these projects, they get announced by someone else, or the trades are reporting that this could go in development this year, this could happen this year. But for her to just flat out come out and say it and be the one to deliver that information, this isn't some leak, this isn't some secondhand information, this is word of mouth from the person in charge that this is the next movie that's happening and it takes place at this time in the timeline. We have a story we feel good about. Let's go. That I'm just really curious to see what more information comes out in April about this now that she's dropping this in, February, or is this something that they were planning on bringing up in April, but because of what happened this week, she was like, well, I just want to go ahead and get this out here now.
I mean, I don't know. I do think that Sean Levy will be at Celebration, and there's like if she didn't deny the Ryan Gosling part, there's a possibility that deal has closed now, or is like really close to closing, and they may fly him over. I don't know, but I'm not ruling that out whatsoever. So there's that possibility that they may actually give details on what that story might be, and say who is coming back from the sequels, which might very well be Daisy. Like I think you have to say that that's the most likely possibility, right? Like the you can play around with other characters, but
Right.
she has to be the more distinct possibility here. And I guess I mean, they will, talk about the future for a bit, but the main part will be Mandalorian and Grogu. They will
Right.
drop a trailer. They
Oh,
will
100%.
announce a bunch of stuff about what's going on with that movie, and that will be like the main takeaway, I think.
So, Luke, they have essentially right now, and outside of, don't count Mando and Grogu because that's already pretty much, we're done with this for the most part. We have the script for Daisy's movie, which is pretty much close to done at this point. In terms of Stephen Knight said most of his stuff's going to be in this movie. George Nolfi's been working on this for a while. Sean Levy's movie goes into production in late summer, fall, sometime around then. And Kimberg's delivering a script this summer for his, for his outline or whatever for the trilogy, whatever she said for that. That's the three scripts, the three projects, the three stories that they are going to have lined up right now, at least stories for, are all post The Rise of Skywalker. She said that, Mangold is working on his, she was asked about Taika, and, it was more of a, she saw the first third of the story or whatever, and she loved it, but, it was more of a, if we could ever get him back, it seems like that's pretty much a dream at this point. Maybe they can come back to it again someday, but it seems like that's not happening in the works. How do you feel about all of the scripts they're going to have in front of them, all of the projects that seem to be laid before them are all post Rise of Skywalker? Like seems like they're pushing their cards in right now. Like we're all in on the future.
It is super interesting. It makes me feel like, when we were watching the Super Bowl and the Eagles were winning by a lot, it's like, well, I don't feel safe about it still, because honestly, this is what I want. I want there to be confidence in your work in the sequel trilogy, whether you really did like kill it or not, whether you view that way, but like you made that, you put it out into the universe. I liked it. And so be confident in that and make stories that build on that and go beyond that. That's what I've wanted. I like those characters that we had in the sequel trilogy. So I enjoy that we're getting more stuff in 3 projects that are movies beyond that. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy cool that we're getting that much stuff that's building on the sequel trilogy. Maybe not super directly, but it's happening after it. So the events of that are definitely going to be some kind of influence on those movies. So I'm pretty stoked about
Kimberg
it.
seemed to be, she directly said like Kimberg is the next iteration of the saga. Like pretty much point blank said that.
No.
I love
she
that.
said that he is launching us into the next iteration of the saga. So
Right.
the trilogy will act as a bridge.
Yes.
And after the trilogy, they will build, I'm imagining they will build an entirely new story. So forget about everything that happened before. This is entirely new. And this will be like the bridge between both of those stories.
Do you think that they
I think that
have
could
a
work.
clear idea of what they want that to be at this point, or are they still like
Do you mean
Kimberg? They have an idea
the Kimberg trilogy or what comes after?
with the Kimberg trilogy. Well, that's both. Like what comes after is his.
I do think that they have an idea of what the Kimber trilogy will be. I'm not sure if what's happening in June is a draft of the first movie or just an
or just
outline of the 3.
like an outline.
I would imagine the draft of the first movie. I would imagine that they already have an outline, like a really rough outline of what the trilogy will be like. I'm not saying 150 pages of this is what's going to happen, but perhaps a 7-page document where they point out we're starting here and we're ending here, and then they will just fill in the gaps.
Right.
Whether that's gonna work or not, I don't know, but that's my reading of the situation. And in terms of what comes after, I don't think they do know at this point. I think they may have some ideas, but I don't think they know for sure.
What do you mean by after? Like
Well,
after?
basically, what the stories that come after Kimberg's trilogy. So if he
Oh,
is,
oh, no, that I have no. That wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking more about
okay,
just having
That's what I
that
thought you were saying
clear
too.
story. No, I meant, do they have a clear idea of what's coming in that trilogy? Like, do you think that they're that outline, they feel good about it, and this script that he's dropping them this summer is going to be like a movie script, or is this more of a, this is the direction I want to go for
no, I
the
think it will be a
totality of
movie
this?
script, like a really rough first draft.
Mhm.
But yeah,
RG says, so the Sean Levy movie is not connected to that trilogy. I don't think we can say definitively that
yeah,
like it's not
exactly.
connected to anything, but the wording that Kennedy said is this will be a standalone movie set 5 to 6 years after the Rise of Skywalker, which could have consequences that play down the road. But it seems for now they're just wanting to do a a self-contained story just set in the future that we haven't seen before. But again, we don't know anything about what they're going for at this point, which is exciting, but also, like Luke said, it's like nerve-wracking as well, because you're like, oh, I've been wanting this. Here it is. Will it turn out the way I hope? How cynical am I to believe one way or the other? Luke, how confident, not even confident, how excited are you though that they are willing to just say, hey, post sequel trilogy, we're here, we're excited. Like Sean Levy is a big name, and the fact that she's come out and say this, like, Sean Levy, here we are, it's happening. How excited are you going to be if at Celebration they bring Levy out? He gives a little bit of a detail on his movie post Rise of Skywalker with Ryan Gosling, alongside him.
I'm going to be elated. I think what's crazy is the fact that Kathleen has, in this interview, like confirmed these like three things we've discussed here in the past 10 15 minutes. She's like openly said that, and I feel like that's the biggest thing that's happened in Star Wars in the past 5 years, because like it's been 5 years of like, well, is this show still happening? Is this kind of just off in the is this getting shoved aside? But what's happening with that? What's happening with that? And for her to be like, so this is happening, and then this is happening, I just that alone, I'm like, okay, that's really surprising, because that's not how this like Lucasfilm has worked
Usually works
for a very long time. So
usually
no, if
things go to
at
hell. So like
Celebration,
in about 3 weeks, everything's going to go to hell is what we're saying.
that's about what I'm trying to mentally prep for, just for the worst. But like, no, I'm going to be very, very happy if at Celebration they bring this Sean Levy out, and he's giving us an overview of what the movie's going to be like, what the setting or characters might be like. Oh, I'd be very happy, because I'm ready for something else that pushes us past and pushes us forward in Star Wars.
It is wild thinking about the number of projects, though, because if Kimberg's dropping them the script for this first movie, obviously they don't have there's no timeline that we're aware of when that could ever, go into production, or they could start working on that. But it is just interesting that that's so soon in the script phase, because you're thinking about Sean Levy's movie going to production. They've been talking about this Rey movie for such a long time now. Mangold's working on something. Filoni has his movie set after Ahsoka season 2 to wrap up this whole Mandoverse. And that's 4. And then now you got this whole trilogy thing in the works. You can't have a Star Wars movie coming out every year. I don't think that's feasible, and I don't really want that either as a Star Wars fan. I love the fact that we can spread these out, but I'm worried, are we going to try to sandwich these together a little too much and oversaturate, the Star Wars market? But then again, I have to sit back and remember that this is Lucasfilm we're talking about. They'll find a way to get these delayed, here or there for the future.
I mean,
They'll pull through.
I am starting to wonder what's happening with Filoni's movie, especially if he takes on the job at the top, because we've basically had no update on that since the announcement. And yes, you can say it's because they did Mandalorian Grogu last year, they're doing Ahsoka now, but like I don't know, it feels like a weird because they keep forgetting this movie whenever
Mhm.
a list of upcoming projects comes out. Like Kennedy didn't mention this movie. Last year when they announced Mandalorian and Grogu, I don't think they specifically mentioned Sharmino Chiroy's movie. I
Right.
don't think they mentioned Filoni's.
Mhm.
So I'm starting to wonder what's happening with that movie because this may be in my head, but
Mhm.
like if he takes on the job, will he have the time to actually direct that movie, or
Mhm.
will they actually just try to shift again and finish off the story some other way?
Like finish it off as in we're just gonna keep this self-contained in Disney Plus, and you
I
can
don't know.
finalize
Maybe they
everything
ask
here.
Famuyiwa to step in and direct
Mhm.
it. Maybe they ask Bryce Dallas Howard.
Mhm.
Maybe Filoni says, you know what, I'm gonna do it, but I'm not gonna do it next year because I'm gonna be busy trying to learn what this job entails, and I'm just gonna
Mhm.
do it in a couple of years.
Mhm.
I don't know, but it feels like people keep talking about like the Taika Waititi movie has been in the works for so long, and they never talk about it. Like the Filoni movie is the one that they never talk about anymore.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm just making things up, but this feels very weird to me.
And don't forget, we have that Lando movie to look forward to as well, guys.
That doesn't exist. I'm sorry.
I
That
was just
does not
texting Donald
exist.
Glover today. He said he's working on it.
Okay.
He's got exciting developments to share. He's ready to share. You
Me
know,
and
because
Right.
he loves
Steven and
such big
Donald
stories.
Glover.
Luke's
Right.
thriving in that group chat. Absolutely.
That movie is as likely to happen as Rogue Squadron is.
Well, I can't
I
wait
mean,
for both.
I can't wait for that one either. I've been seated for Rogue Squadron for 3 years now, you know, so it's fantastic. I'm still waiting on the trailers to end. It's almost time though. But okay, we have a lot of time to discuss everything going on and unpacking everything here with Kennedy, with the future of Star Wars, all these feature films that are supposedly going to get made that we have scripts on the way for. But more pressing matters now to attend to, and that is we have a Star Wars show coming out in 2 months. We got the trailer drop this week, and
Everyone forgot about it.
everyone forgot about it in a matter of 24 hours because the next day Lucasfilm has a bomb that had just been dropped over it with this Kathleen Kennedy news. But I will say,
And, by the way,
I have not
before we
forgotten.
get into Andor, sorry, just 1 second. They just tried to bury the Kathleen Kennedy story so hard that they dropped the Revenge of the Sith, going back to theaters announcement like by the next day. I'm not sure if that was planned in advance, but it just felt like so convenient to have that
What was
drop.
2 hours later?
I mean, it was like more like 12 hours later, but yeah, it was like so convenient to have that news ready to drop the
I don't
Monday
think what
after.
was it 12 hours? I think I woke up and saw the Kennedy stuff, and then I was eating lunch and got saw the poster.
No, no. I woke up at 6 a.m. Spain time and saw the Kennedy stuff drop 5 minutes before. And
Okay.
then this
Okay.
the
When I woke up, then I saw it. When they woke up in California, they saw, they saw it. We're like,
right,
someone made a phone call right then. After that, said we got to get this out now.
right.
Or they
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
it should have been even like a bigger story. They might have just said, screw it, drop the first episode of Andor right now. Let's go get it out there. That's when we know
Cover
when we
it.
really get them. See what leaks can we get about this story from now until April 22nd, and they'll just drop. Here's the entire season 2 of Andor. Go see what
I mean,
happens.
listen, it's not that major of a drop, but we did see actually quite a spike in views on our story covering that the Revenge of the Sith re-release. So that's why I figured that this may have been the biggest thing that they had lying around that they could just drop to try to bury it.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it wasn't nearly as big as Kennedy. Like they
Of
had to
course
like
not.
reveal a full new movie to
Hmm.
actually try to bury this thing. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, what are we most looking forward to Andor season 2, just strictly based on the trailer? We can talk about all the different things they dropped in the trailer in a moment. We can talk about the music choice and all of that, which was interesting to see the dynamics of some people loved it, some people hated it. I didn't find too many people in between, but just all that stuff aside, one thing, like what gripped you the most that you're just most looking forward to after you watched it just the first time through?
I'm gonna let Luke go first.
I think I think for me, I'm gonna go with Saw Gerrera. He's every single time that I see him in a story, I am like fascinated. I'm like, what is this man doing? Because he's such a rogue element, and he's so chaotic. But he's trying to take down the Empire, so it's like I can't root all the way against him. So he's a very interesting middle kind of in the gray character, and so I would like to see what's going on. He has that incredible line in the trailer where he's like, "You're here, you're right here, ready to fight," and I'm like, "Okay, yes, I am. Let's go." He's
Luke
he's
said,
electric.
"Grab my
Really.
blast."
Forrest
Luke
Whitaker,
grabbed his
yeah.
blaster and he's ready to go.
Save the dream. Save the rebellion.
Luke,
So I
Luke
think
looked at Madison and he said, "It's time to save the rebellion. Time to save the dream."
Madison. Anyways,
When I send
yes.
you a picture of like
Saw
that picture
Gerrera.
of Saw Gerrera and Forrest Whitaker now, it's like, what does this mean? It means it's time to save the rebellion. It means it's time to save the dream. No,
Save the
I'm
dream.
curious though that you say that, because not to it's not my place to tell someone what they should and shouldn't be most excited about in a trailer. It just surprised me because I feel like in the scope of Andor and what we have for the show and what they showed in the trailer, like Saw Gerrera, I forget that he's even there until I see the end of the trailer again. You know what I mean? That's not a knock
Yeah.
on Saw Gerrera,
Yeah.
because Forrest Whitaker, he's awesome, and the character of Saw is really interesting. I just think that there's so many other things I jump to more in Andor than Saw, but it'll be interesting to see how far they push him.
Yeah.
So I think what you said was interesting about how, he just wants to fight the Empire, and in Rebels we see him completely sever himself from the Rebel Alliance and do his own thing. And obviously in Rogue One that's taken place. And will we see more of like the horrible things he's willing to do in the name of the rebellion, like in this season, or will he be, similarly just kind of like a even more of a push to the side because of the growing ensemble for season 2? But
There's definitely a lot of things that are more pressing that I could have maybe chosen, but I kind of went with a niche one because there's a lot of stuff going on.
well, he's the very end of the trailer too. Like they saved him
Also,
for
yeah.
his little moment for last. So it is kind of the thing you might stick with afterwards.
Yeah,
but
it kind of stuck with me.
Miguel?
I'm gonna go with two choices. They're both kind of related. So one is Pix, seeing Adria again. She was one of my favorite parts of season 1, especially in the first half. In the second half, I think she was kind of wasted. I think they were mostly warming her up for season 2 because she's gonna have an incredible arc now. And then in second place, but not necessarily like less looking forward to it, the relationship between Cassian and K2. Like that's kind of something that was really enjoyable in Rogue One that we didn't really get to see in season 1. And now that K2 is gonna be in season 2, I'm really looking forward to seeing their dynamics.
Are you excited to see like that? And is it more of the initial, how does that happen? Or is it more you're ready to just get that over with and get straight into the
Get
dynamic?
that over with. I want to see a full episode of Cassian talking to K2 and just arguing about random things. Yeah.
So
that's what I want.
it'll be fun to see. K2 is not. He's an interesting droid because he's not like the R2 3PO level droid, but after those two, you could argue BB-8 because of the saga, but I think K2 really just stands out for most people as, for the deeper Star Wars fans, I think they probably would gravitate more towards him maybe than a BB-8. I think the generic fan would like be like, yeah, that's BB-8 more before K2. So I'm really excited for that. Luke, what do you think? Where do you think I'm going here? For
I
mine.
think you're gonna go
going
for
Lothar.
Genevieve O'Reilly. Gonna go for some Mon Mothma.
So Luke, you know me so well. But you're also wrong here because when I saw, I don't know what it is, when I saw director Krennic in that trailer, that's one of my favorite villains in all of Star Wars. Like he just, like Ammunition just plays such a great scummy Imperial loser and this whiny diva Imperial. Like I cannot
Diva.
wait to watch this man go around. And I think that I said this in my, 5 little, things, my 5 takeaways video I put out there is I 100% think it reminded me. I think he's going to crash Mon Mothma's daughter's like wedding. He's going to cause some sort of scene there. And I think that's like the moment we see played out. We hear him talk. And it 100% reminded me of Leia, Princess of Alderaan book. Have you read that one, Luke?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Miguel, have you read that one?
I have not.
So there's a scene where
Dude,
Leia
yes,
has now pretty much become aware of the rebellion and her parents' roles in it. And Tarkin shows up on Alderaan unannounced, where pretty much the leaders of the rebellion are gathered. And he knows that they have pretty much been forming the rebellion. And Bail and Bray Organa, they know that he knows. But it's just this, he can't move against them yet. It's this little battle of, is anyone going to give an inch? And I cannot wait to see. I think that's going to be like a similar thing that we get with Mon Mothma here early on in these episodes. I think with these time jumps, he's going to know that she's involved in all of this. And she knows that Krennic knows that she's involved. And I just really want to see the little chess pieces, little chess moves that they make, just in the subtle body language, the off like one-liners. That's what I'm most looking forward to, just based off of that, because Krennic being back to me just elevates this whole thing to 3 other levels. Because I love Deidre Mira, and I don't want her to get pushed to the side in favor of Krennic in this show, because I think she's a fantastic villain as well. But the fact that you have someone like Krennic who's going to spar not only with like our heroes, but he's going to spar with Deidre too. Like those two are going to clash 100%. So I love having this character back that I know every single person is just going to hate his guts, and he's not going to give 2 flips about it. Cannot wait for Orson Krennic.
I mean, you dropped the big name, and I've thought about this before. Any chance we see Tarkin here?
I don't know how I feel about it, because I've been like so anti deep fake for a lot of these things, and that's the direction they would go if they did this. So I don't know if I really want that. I don't think it needs it, because I think the Death Star and the way it works a lot of times too in some of these the books that we've read too, and then this is the Death Star really is like Tarkin's the one that kind of is heading the whole, this is his baby in terms of his idea, but the Death Star is really like Krennic's project. Like he's the one that's going to be in command. He's the one that's overseeing maybe the day-to-day operations of this thing. So in terms of we're building up to the Death Star construction, I don't think we necessarily need Tarkin to be in the show, because it is so frustrating for Krennic to have Tarkin just pull rank and sweep the, command of the Death Star out from under him, when he feels like he's been building his whole career up to this moment where he gets to command the biggest star, base in the galaxy. So I don't think we need Tarkin. If we do get him, I hope it's just one little scene real quick. They're going to do the AI stuff. So make it quick, make it out of there. But I don't think we need him.
This was
So
my
I don't think
achievement,
he will
not
be there.
yours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he will be there, and here's a different argument why. Because I think they're looking at this as Andor plus Rogue One being a full story, right? So they've Gilroy has openly talked about how Rogue One is going to be the finale of Andor. The actual finale of the show will end just seconds before Rogue One begins, and this will be like the 2 hour finale. Season 1 of Andor did not have Ben Mendelsohn, Krennic, right? Season 2 has him. So I think that we are ranking up the actual antagonists here. So we had like the lower level Imperials in season 1. We're gonna have the same guys in season 2 with just one higher level introduced, which is Krennic. And then in Rogue One, we bring up the big guns, which is Vader and Tarkin. So I think that's how it works in my mind, and I think that's how they can get away with it, because like you're scaling up the in your story. In season 1, like everything is like spread out, divided. The rebellion doesn't really exist. It's just a bunch of individual cells that are fighting against the Empire. Season
Pockets
2,
of
it starts
fomenting.
to form up, and because of that formation, we get higher level Imperials coming in,
Throughout.
and then just in Rogue One, everything explodes. So I think
And
that's
it ends with the Imperial, which is Darth Vader. It ends with the Sith Lord himself.
exactly.
It doesn't get any bigger than Darth Vader.
Exactly.
Luke, I have to ask you, Luthen. We all love Luthen here, but we don't see Luthen at all in this trailer, except for that
He is. Okay.
one little shot of him with his ominous little, depressive face that he makes. Like there's nothing else. Every other character, like we see Bix involved in some action. We see Cassian doing a lot with the tie Avenger. He's blowing things up. Brasso is tangling with stormtroopers. Pretty much every character we see doing something. Like you mentioned, Saw Gerrera already is grabbing someone and trying to inspire them to fight. Luthen, very subtle, very background in this trailer. How do you think, was that intentional? Like we don't want to, show too much of what he's up to, or is, because of Robert Rodriguez, situation of, this is
We
you know,
can't
we
show
couldn't
you
Every
more than
second
the
is a
first
spoiler.
30 minutes.
every second's a spoiler. You can't possibly show him anything other than this one scene because it would just give everything away.
So I'm going to say that maybe that sentiment holds a lot more weight with this project than Book of Boba Fett did.
Tony Gilroy.
I feel confident saying that like all of Luthen's scenes are going to be very hard hitting, and if you're going to show too much of those in the trailer, it's not going to serve the show to show those in the trailer. So that's where I'm going. That's the angle I'm taking, is like he's going to have some really tough conversations and some really interesting stuff going on. I'm thinking he's going to die, but it's going to be like the greatest death in Star Wars. Like it's going to be awesome. But like, yeah, like you're not going to show anything that leads up to that. You're not going to show it. You can't show too much because there's a lot going on with that character that's meaty for the plot. So I think
I have
you
a
got to
Luthen
keep
question. I have a Luthen question for both of you. Do you think, because he's going to go out on a blaze of glory, it's going to be epic. Do you think, though, that he's going to go the route with the Rebel Alliance? Like he's going to die in the name of the Rebel Alliance? Or do you think he becomes more of the Saw Gerrera? He becomes so invested, too invested. It becomes too personal. He gets too extreme for what the Alliance wants to do. And he's like, I brought all these people together, but now I'm the one being pushed out as they're starting to form, and he gets a little bit too extreme. That's how he ends up going. Or do you think he's going to be able to work with and manage, his way through the alliance that ends up forming?
So it's been a minute since I've watched the first season. I need to rewatch before the second one. But from what I remember, I don't really see Luthen as a character who would like to be in on the story. I see him more of like a guy moving the strings around everyone. So not like he'd be in a situation where he is being pushed out. I would, I think he would be more one of those heroes who doesn't really get a song.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like one of the heroes that you don't really hear about because they don't make it to the history books, but they were
Mhm.
actually essential to everything,
Mhm.
to the formation. That's also why we don't hear about him in Rogue One and so on.
Mhm.
I do think he will go out in a blaze of glory.
Mhm.
Maybe in a situation like we had in, I think it was episode 10 of season 1, where he's just in a mission by himself, like flying away from TIE fighters over some planet,
Mhm.
and maybe that mission is just has much higher stakes than it had in season 1, and this time he just doesn't make it or something like that.
Mhm.
And that may be Cassian's final push into accepting his role and
Mhm.
into being the radicalized guy that we saw in Rogue One, because we didn't see that
Mhm.
guy in season 1. Although I do think that there may be other events in season 2 that will push him to that point.
Yeah, like, Biggs dying a horrible death, Brasso dying a
No,
horrible death,
I was
trying to
thinking more
save Pino
about
Loy, and then that doesn't work out, or
what's the name of this tragedy that we're supposedly seeing?
the
Gorman
Gorman
Massacre.
Massacre.
Exactly. So I think that will be
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Well, there is that scene in the trailer where there's like a bomb that goes off there, and you see Cassian's there. He's holding a blaster, and there's just bodies everywhere. Like that to me screams with the Gorman Massacre that's going to kick
Yeah.
off like the second, like we've talked about this before, like this kicking off maybe the second half of
Yeah.
the trailer. The only thing
Yeah, I
about
do think this will
Luthen,
be like the mid-season.
the only thing about Luthen that makes me question how he's going to go out. I agree with everything you said about how he's perfectly fine behind the scenes, but he wants to be pulling the strings. Like he's been in control this whole time. But so how does someone who you see throughout Andor season 1, like he has a hard time even at moments not pushing forward faster. Like he wants to fight, like he's tired of hiding. And, Lita, his assistant, kind of has to rein him in sometimes and talk sense to him. So how does
Clea.
someone, Clea, thank you. Who's Lita? Is there a Lita?
That's Mon Mothma's daughter.
That's right. That's Mama's daughter. Yes. So
I
Clea,
just watched episode 4 tonight, so I'm like pretty fresh
okay.
on this.
So Clea has to rein him in. So does someone who's wants to pull the strings, but also is ready, has the eagerness to fight. If he's no longer able to pull these strings from the background, like he's put all the pieces in play, he's pulled the strings into right where they need to be, and they're almost like the kids are all grown up now. They're ready to lead the alliance, and they no longer value his input or see the need as much for him anymore. What does someone like that do at that point? Does that make him kind of accept his new role and do what he can for the alliance, or does he get frustrated by that and cause him to make some mistakes and do things he wouldn't normally have done maybe early on? So I really want to see what direction he goes in terms of his just relationships with the alliance. But I have a Gorman Massacre. It just seems like a guy that's gonna go a little too hard. But I have a Gorman Massacre question for you guys. So if we're assuming that the Gorman Massacre is shown in that sequence, I've always wondered this a little bit, since we've gotten more of like what they're willing to do to push the Empire to the brink and turn these storylines. And I said this in my takeaways. Cassian's there with his blaster drawn, and there's stormtroopers going everywhere. Is it possible? I'm not saying the Rebel Alliance is responsible. Like they start the Gorman Massacre and they frame it on the Empire. But I really wonder if Cassian maybe saw some of the troops are there and something they do instigates this, and Cassian himself is going to feel directly responsible even for the massacre of these people. And could that be the switch? Like, does the Rebel Alliance have a little bit more blame put on them for the Gorman Massacre, but because it's stormtroopers and they're the ones, doing the firing on civilians, obviously the story that gets out is the Empire has massacred all these people.
Look, you take this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that I really don't want that to be true, because I hate when the rebellion is painted in a in a dirty light, or so that they have to get their hands dirty. But that's the reality of it, is that that's how revolutions are. And so I could see that being the case with this Gorman massacre, that the rebellion, this nascent rebellion, this pocket of fomenting that's trying to get off the ground, is trying to weaponize or just use this movement that's going on with the Gormans, who are peacefully protesting the injustices of the empire, and they're trying to co-opt that and use that for their own like anti-empire sentiment. And I think they're going to push the envelope too far, to a point where they are instigating some violence, and so the empire, being an evil entity, feels completely justified getting poked, so they turn around and they throw a haymaker. So it's obviously the empire causing a massacre, but it's like it's the rebellion pushing too far. They shouldn't have maybe done that. They could have handled it a better way.
Like Luthen says after Aldani, we want them coming down hard. Like, we want them pushing people to the brink. Is this an example of they're doing things with the Gormans? They're doing something over there in order to push the Empire even more to come down even harder, but it backfires on them. And what they've done is they've caused just absolute mass chaos in the area.
Yeah. And it could be one of those instances where I see I think
a public
okay,
Luthen execution.
Well, Scar, that'd be terrible, but I could see maybe Andor season 2. That's the show to do it. That's where it would happen. Shoot.
Miguel, any final like Gorman massacre thoughts?
I mean, that feels like a very interesting and fascinating story. I don't think that's the theme that Andor is trying to tell. I don't think that this VR spin, let's call it that done by the Rebel Alliance, that be something that Tony Gilroy would be interested in telling. I think he's more interested in exploring what are the limits that the people are willing to endure until they take up they take arms and so on. So I don't think that's quite where it's going, but it feels like an interesting story, and because it feels like that, I wouldn't entirely rule it out. I just don't feel like that's something that Gilroy is interested in telling this moment.
There are so many just fun little shots that this trailer had that made me remember why most of the time Star Wars trailers to me just get it right. A lot of times just get it right, where I feel like I saw so much in this trailer, but they didn't show us anything, because we'd already seen some of these moments before and they just extended it by a little bit, or they showed us little clips of things that we already knew were taking place within the story. Like Mon Mothma, they had the dancing sequence and everything. We know that she's going to have to give like her daughter up in this arranged marriage to Davos Golden. Like, we know this is coming. That's something that we are already aware of. Showing Krennic with the Death Star, a quick scene with Krennic with Mon Mothma and Davos Golden in the background. Those are all things that we know are coming. There are not any just, we're going to drop this in for, surprises, or we're gonna drop this in to make you go, oh my gosh, that's happening in Andor season 2. It's no, we're gonna pack a punch, we're gonna do it in 90 seconds, and you're gonna walk away excited, but you're not gonna know what's going on. And I think that a lot of trailers kind of have gotten away from that in recent years, where they're giving us too much in the marketing and the buildup. And I feel like I'm way ahead when I'm watching this. And with Andor, we know how it all ends with Rogue One, but never once in season 1 of Andor did I feel ahead of the story by knowing that Cassian dies in the Death Star by the Death Star on Scarif.
He does?
Shut up. Shut up.
Dude, I never watched Rogue One.
So I don't know if you guys like felt similarly about the trailer, or if you had any thoughts like that.
I was disappointed by the trailer, to be honest. It was too short. It was too snappy, very like
It was just
felt like a teaser you drop 8 months in advance, not a trailer for a
that's
show that
fair.
is coming out in 2 months.
That's fair.
And I did not like the music at all. I do agree with the sentiment that was shared on our Discord that this felt like Lucasfilm knew what they were doing, knows what they have, and they're just not afraid to just show it off however they can. And I was expecting them to actually try to appeal to non-Star Wars fans, so mostly like HBO fans or middle-aged white guys that may not be watching a Star Wars show on Disney Plus, but
Yeah.
are tuning in to watch Succession every weekend. So that's more of like the crowd that they're targeting, which I get. But I was not a fan of how they did it, to be honest.
I felt weird maybe it feels weird as a Star Wars fan to say this, but I totally dug the music. Like it threw me off for a moment.
Yeah,
like it
fair,
threw me off for a moment because I was like, whoa, this is Star Wars. But just the general, I think when Nate put it in there, like he's like, they just are like, let's get weird with it because we got something great cooking here. And I just accepted it, and I was like, I just kind of dug it. I kind of dug it after the second time around. I dug it a lot more.
But that's fair, like for the both of us or for the three of us who know that they have something really special.
Right.
But you have to appeal to someone who is not aware that this show is coming out. You have to appeal to the guy that has heard about this show for 2 years, hasn't really gotten around to it, and now that he learns that there's this new season coming out, he may be signing up for Disney Plus to watch both back to back. So
that's fair.
That's your audience for this trailer, not us. And I'm not sure that it was appealing enough for them.
That's fair. What do we think about the arc drops that we have 4 weeks of Andor and 3 episodes a week? We feel good about that?
Feels like Lucasfilm listening to the fans, actually. Like this has been something that people have been talking about for 2.5 years, that they should have dropped the episodes 3 in chunks of 3, because that's like the natural way that they were conceived in. It feels like very good. It feels overwhelming to try to watch it like on Wednesday morning or Tuesday evening every week.
It's Tuesday nights are gonna be. I'm like,
but that's also the beautiful thing of binging, that you can do it at any time. You don't have to do it on Tuesday night.
No, I have to. I don't.
I mean, you do, but like the average
I'm just
individual.
I have to. It's gonna. So I'm gonna be coming home from class exhausted. I'm like, all right, time for some Andor. Oh man, what time is it? Is it the usual time where like 6 o'clock Eastern
I think
time?
so. I'm not sure.
Or 6 o'clock
Pacific
said, time. Or
it has to be, right?
Cutting it close.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's gonna be like 9 o'clock Eastern time. This is how they usually do it. So
yeah,
I'm excited for the arc drops. I'm torn though, because I don't know. I'm just weird. I love the fact that I got to sit with never more than 12 for a week, or I got to sit a week waiting for the Aldani heist to happen. Like I'm sick like that, and I just love doing that. But I get I think mass appeal, dropping the arcs and having them those just a year at a time. I think it makes sense with what they're going for. I think I just hate that it's gonna feel like it's gonna come and go so fast. That month is just gonna fly by, and it'll all be over.
That is fair. That is fair, and the never more than 12 thing is more than fair. At the same time, there were also some episodes in season 1 where it felt like this story is not moving. I need the next episode, not because I need to watch it now because I need to know what happens, just because I just spent 35 minutes watching this episode and it feels like nothing happened.
Right.
And I'm talking about you, episode 5. So
that's fair.
And also
that's my next one up.
One more thing, and it's that season 1 was structured in blocks, but I think that fell in naturally after writing. I think this was conceived from the beginning in blocks of 3, and it feels more natural for like it I
Right.
think it's gonna feel like each block of 3 is its own story.
Mhm,
And yes, you
mhm.
can always spread it out, but I think it's going to feel less even more natural than season 1, I would say.
I think it will. It'll be pretty seamless because they're trying to do this whole, each thing is a year, and I'm really
Right.
excited. The fact we're sticking with it. We got 12 full episodes again, and they're not going to cut corners with this one. Like, it's going to be fleshed out really nicely. I'm not expecting any random 25-minute episodes in those 12 episodes. These are going to be a nice 40 minutes or more pretty much every time. I cannot wait. I just have to make sure I'm ready to watch a movie every single Tuesday night. I can do
Exactly.
that.
I also
A movie and a half or so.
wanted to just
Well,
yeah, exactly.
depends on how long some of these episodes are. We'll see. Depends on how long.
You also, like, as the viewer, I know that the reason why it kind of sucks to be like, oh, it's going to be over in 4 weeks, but like, you as the viewer have the option to watch the episodes how you would like to watch them. I understand that kind of maybe
Mhm.
limits your interaction with social media, but like, do you really like? Does the
Stop.
human experience need social
No,
media?
stop
Because
though. But I have to stop you. Like, I'm sick for wanting just one episode a week,
yeah,
or whatever. It's even more sick to think that someone would have all three and just be like, I'm just gonna watch one and not watch another one for a full week. Like, out of just, I have to watch one a week, and force themselves to do that. Like, it's one thing if they're forcing us to wait a week, but you forcing yourself to wait. That's some sick behavior right there. I couldn't do
I've
that.
just I've seen some people that
You should
are
do
like,
it.
I wish, yeah, maybe
You
I
do it.
will.
You go for it. You do show us how it's
I
done.
mean, what I have done personally is for weekly drops, I sometimes wait for the full show to come out and then I binge
Mhm.
it over the weekend. Because
Mhm.
I mean, I did that with the Penguin, for example, and I did that for a couple
Mhm.
others. That works for me. It also should be pointed out that even if they drop it in chunks of 3, maybe you can watch one episode on Tuesday night, but you're busy for the full week,
Right.
then you have to wait until the next one to actually watch the next one, the next episode.
Like,
So
right. That's the casual person. I'll watch this. I'm talking about a conscious decision of there's 3 that come out. I'm
no,
only
I
watching
understand. I
1.
understand.
Like, I'm only
Yeah,
watching 1. Don't
Yeah,
you
I'm
dare try
not
to get
that
me to watch
person.
2. Don't you
Definitely
dare
not
get
that
me to watch
person,
2.
but and I wasn't arguing that like I think that's better. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm totally with you guys. Where it's like, yeah, I talked to my fiance like when Tuesday nights we're watching a
I'm
movie
the
every Tuesday night because we're watching Andor. So
I'm the
just people
disgusting
who might be
human that was getting
upset.
up at I'm disgusting human that got up at 5 a.m. to watch Bad Batch episodes drop because I had to get it in before basketball practice. Gosh, that was the worst. Is the one time when Mando season 3 was on, the one time I did
Oh,
not get up super early to watch it before school. I get to
oh,
school, and it was the finale episode or something. I was up so late the day before, like I could not get
you
up and
told me
watch it.
about
I
this.
was dragging myself into work, and this guy, or no, it was earlier in the season, I guess, because there was whatever episode Zeb was in, and the student comes up, Mr. Bradshaw, Zeb was in the episode today. Can you believe it? And I just said the one time I did not get up to watch before school. It had to be when our man Gara Zebarelios was dropped in Mando season
I mean,
3. It made me so mad. Never
for what
again.
it's worth, I don't think many of your kids are gonna be watching Andor, so
I got 2 students that watch Andor, and I am
okay.
is very
Feels
surprised.
quite mature for them though.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
like, should you be watching Andor? Like, you're 13 years old. But at the same time, I'm like, some of this probably goes like right over their heads. But he goes, yeah, I'm really excited for Andor season 2. Like, this kid told me, we'll call him Cornelius. Cornelius was like, Mr. Bradshaw, I saw that Andor season 2 trailer. I said, yeah, what'd you think? He goes, forgot who all these people were. Gonna have to start my rewatch this week. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that checks out. It probably went over your head completely whenever you were watching the first time. But this is
Yeah.
the same kid that he likes my class, but he'll just randomly like find titles of some of our Star Wars Newsnet articles or Star Wars Newsnet videos or whatever, and he'd be like, "So, Mr. Bradshaw, what did you think about Echoes of Fear 3?" Like he's like, my guy I like to read, Nate here, he says that, it hit all the high points, but I didn't feel that way. What about you? And I'm just like, shut up. Like, shut up.
That's so funny, though.
It's pretty funny. Except when he does it during like a test or something. And
Okay, yeah, that's not
this
funny,
kid,
but...
he got in trouble. This kid got in trouble a few weeks ago because we're taking a quiz, and all of a sudden I hear is, "Thank the Force, we're back for Star Wars Newsnet Live here Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time." And I said, "Oh my gosh, like this kid, this kid."
That's good.
Man, Luke, are you flying to Orlando April 25th for Revenge of the Sith? Or is it my turn?
Yep,
to come
sure am. Probably not.
Are you guys gonna go try to catch it that week in theaters?
I think so. Yeah,
will
we're gonna make an attempt
not.
You're gonna pass?
because you hate the
I
movie.
will be on vacation and not thinking about going to the movies.
See,
For
I'm on
once.
vacation for I would book a vacation day for the movie. I have to lock in. One time, oh my gosh, when the summer Janelle and I were on vacation at this resort in DR over the summer, and it was when the Acolyte season finale came out because I wasn't on the show. I was gone. I was on vacation, and my VPN to like stream it over there wasn't working. The Disney Plus stuff wasn't working. The hotel had Disney Plus. It wasn't working. I'm trying to illegally like stream it, and she's sitting there with like food. She's like, "Are you gonna come?" I was like, I gotta get this. She's like, "We're on vacation." I was like, "I'm on vacation, but Star Wars is not, okay?" Like, it's time to lock in. It's time to lock the heck in right now. Oh man, but no, I'll be having to go see that for sure. But April is gonna be as busy a month as we're gonna have for a long time over here at Star Wars Newsnet, just because of Andor. We got Celebration. There's Revenge of the Sith going on. It's gonna be a good time. If you haven't had a chance, go read Miguel's article from this last Sunday. But Miguel, a lot has happened since your last article. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say right now, but what are you going to be writing about this week for the Sunday, newsletter piece?
So Hasbro revealed yesterday a ton of toys from the new line of Black Series. So I'm gonna be discussing that in a 3,000 word piece.
I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on. I'm sure they dropped yet another variation of a clone trooper, so I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about that. But no, everyone go check out Miguel's piece every week. Luke and I will be back. Timeline Show will be back. We took a break last week. I'm halfway through my reread of The Race to Crash Point Tower. I will finish that up tomorrow. Luke and I'll be recording that this weekend. We will get the Jamaram, story out to you all as soon as we can. Go check out Nate's interview, of course. But we've already met Lula, though, because we did the High Republic Adventures comics. So check out episode 45 of the Timeline Show this weekend, whenever you can get a chance. On Monday or Tuesday, I'll be dropping a Star Wars monthly roundup podcast with Paul, as the two and I are going to debate everything under the sun from the last month in Star Wars. So that has no shortage of topics for us to go over for an hour. So make sure you check that out. If you haven't listened, go ahead and give Nate's interview with Alexander Freed a listen here on the YouTube channel. I'm going to try to upload that to the podcast channel as well. So if you just want to listen to the audio of that, but good great interview from Nate with the author of The Mask of Fear, which comes out. Did that drop? Is that next month or is that right now? I forget.
That dropped on Tuesday.
Mask of Fear came out
Tuesday,
on Tuesday.
this week. There's so many things.
Go buy it now.
So go buy that now. Go get that book. Join us every Thursday night for Star Wars Newsnet Live. We have no shortage of things to talk about for the next few, 3 or 4 months with all the Star Wars stuff that's happening.
Years.
So, yeah, pretty much forever, honestly. We're forever intertwined on this wonderful, wonderful journey. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We will see you next Thursday for some more Star Wars Newsnet Live. Luke, I look forward to the Timeline show this week. Excited. Always enjoy those times. Miguel, I'm ready for I think I still have it here. Number one thing that we're looking for this weekend right here. Timothée Chalamet, best lead actor. Let's make it happen, everyone. He's in the pursuit of greatness, guys. It's my guy. Cannot wait for Light and Life, everyone. Love you guys. Remember, we are all the Republic.